Um, you're looking at me, you're going, wow, this person looks overwhelmed to be in front of a camera. Well, I'd like to transition that, and by the end of this video I'd like to make you feel overwhelmed being on your side of my camera. Alrighty, so it's a little bit early for me. I've just woken up, a little bit earlier than usual. I've got a cat that's inside that's probably going to jump up on my lap a few times prior to this video ending. Hopefully not so much. Hey puss. Look, I've got some really important things to talk about, and I'm pretty sure as YouTube metrics go, or social videos, if I haven't grabbed your attention in the first minute, I'm probably not getting it. Well, I'm not really trying to sell you anything, but I wouldn't be a good salesperson if I didn't keep it interesting. So look, let me try and hook you a little bit. Probably the most important video you ever watch. If this video has the weight or the impact that I'm going for. And it's not really me. I mean, literally, I just woke up out of bed. I just intuitively felt, whether the angels need it or whatever your inkling is towards spirituality, holistic paradigm, if you wish. Look, we often feel these moments where the universe might be guiding us, and I'd have to say I've nurtured that all through my life since I was about 16, and I'm not 16 anymore. Look, it's been a long journey. But it's also been a really hard journey, because when you feel that you've got something to share to people, and you feel that you're a raving loony if you trust your intuition, it can be, it's a challenge, right? And so you kind of got to leave your ego at the door, and that's why I'm standing here. Kind of haven't looked in a mirror this morning. I'm into cameras. I've set a phone camera up to do this video because I think it will record for more than 30 minutes. And if it does, we'll find out. And I've got no feedback. I've sadly not even got a microphone hooked up, which would be the bare minimal that I would have to do for anybody if I was making a video. And I have to apologise for the lack of professionalism. But this here is what I'm all about. I'm just going to do this a little bit raw, because I feel the urgency of this message probably outweighs the need to make it better. That being said, if this message does what I'm hoping it does and gets out and starts to circle, then I'll follow it up. In fact, I'll dedicate my life, if you wish, to following it up. But I don't want to put some burden on you where you feel that, hey, I've got to employ this nut job to stay on that side of the lens making these videos. Look, I gather the presentation value of this video is, in this state that I'm making it, very, very basic. If I can get a multimedia child to maybe give it a touch and do some animation overlays or something, and get into Premiere or whatever non-branded market, open source market version of a video editor might be out there, then it could be made better. But look, it's like I'm delaying. So how about we move to the meat and potatoes of this video, which is, look, I feel about 20 years ago that I saw a solution for the population on this planet in terms of how we could live, and didn't have, I guess, the confidence, if you will, to just randomly start talking to people about it. But I kept it in the back of my head, and I kept it sort of at a daydream level, and I knew the vision of what I could see was beyond my level of creativity. I knew the vision of what I saw could actually be made by people. It had to be able to be made by people. Otherwise, how could I have this dream world of it, if you wish? Very, very vivid, very, very real. And whilst I might be able to be capable of great dreams, these just felt like they were a precognitive almost vision. But very lucidly, I could see a world of happiness where we all got on. So look, I've had a fascinating life. I've moved house a lot through random life events. I've seen so many things. I've hung out with all walks of life, of people of different levels. I guess personally, my background was I was born into money, but I rejected my family's money. You can see my lovely teeth and whatnot. I didn't want the braces. I sort of said, look, that money could be better used somewhere else in the world, or certainly by the family even. I've always had this belief that we need to be responsible for our relationship or our engagement with others, and taking full personal responsibility. So look, for a long time, going back to say the 90s, look, I started to take the aspects of my life that I'd seen and the things that I felt I needed to make my life better, And I started to sort of hold them up to a lens to see, well, what do other people need? And again, I've had this amazing life. I've met incredible people. And whether that be in the middle of, and I'm an Australian, in the middle of my country, where you meet people who've never touched the city, you know, and they're free of the modern Western lifestyle, I guess, that I'm a part of, you know, be it water in a glass. A way of life that is domesticated pets, who knows? Everyone has a different paradigm, I guess, if you will. And any society where we're going to go forward as a human race is going to involve being able to work together, and all nations, you know, all people with all different beliefs. We're going to be stronger together. With a pool of talents, with a pool of knowledge, we're going to go up. And that's why I call to you. I call to people behind this lens, you in the seat, for a range of reasons, because aspects of what I'm about to say you might not feel are relevant to you. But then as I speak more and you realise, oh, hang on, everything that I can do will be relevant to that vision playing out at some point. And that's the truth. Now, look, when I talk about a vision, okay, we'll get there. What is the vision? Okay, it's a vision where we can all live happily. But I can't qualify that if the person who's listening doesn't feel that I have the right blinkers to see their needs. And so, look, obviously I'm speaking to people with a high enough socioeconomic world to have an internet connection and a playback device. Okay, so straight away we've got a very limited pool of people that I'm reaching out to in a tier 1 way, or a first wave, if you wish, of getting information out there, sharing a vision that and a way to make this happen. So going back to say the 90s, I started to look, and I'd always studied legal studies and commerce and a lot of psychology, and I recognised that we all have different difficulties. We all have stresses, and a small amount of stress is healthy, but too much stress becomes a negative. Essentially, it quells life, and it leads to sickness and all sorts of things. So there's a lot in life we need to do, ideally, through right living, be it responsible living and right action in the first instance, that will hopefully lessen the stresses that we're going to experience down the track. And I think the human race knows that. I think we all know at the moment, whilst we're scurrying around trying to build a better hamburger and make more profit than the person next to us on the basis that our children will be able to go to tertiary education and they won't have to work so hard. We all work hard for a reason, and we all believe in the present structure because it has clearly worked for our forebears. But when I was holding up to a lens, my lens, of what society needs and what's the correct way to go forward, I realised that we hadn't had the great reset that everyone's talking about now. We'd never actually conceptualised a world beyond the Industrial Revolution where we could make the technology we could make it all work for us in a way where we could be still worker ants or worker bees. Some of our biology needs that. Yet we wouldn't have to work longer hours or harder. There are certain aspects of tech that can take over aspects of us being a huge, great big workforce. And really what it was going to require was, apparently it's the one governing body structure that we've never actually tried, yet all the theorists reckon is actually the best way forward. It's sort of the only way forward in a growing population world where we're going to have a need for better distributed wealth, such that we can all live at a certain level of quality that we can find happiness. Now, let's work from the point of view of happiness. Okay, now there's business owners out there, and there's heads of business out there, CEOs, that might be looking, look, how could a new paradigm restructure my business? Okay, so the first thing I want to say is, well, everybody should be continuing their business in a way that's going forward. Okay, even if right now, if this video hit 20 million people or a billion people, who knows, I don't know what the biggest viewer base on YouTube ever on a video has been. So let's just assume we can hit 1,000 people and it spirals out. If this thing was to go viral, and if everybody was to believe that this paradigm is on its way and it's happening quickly, it then might fall to the place where people in the existing world are going, well, hang on, my job is destructive of the current worldview, which we're currently working to shift away from. And that's not the case. We actually need to continue on a trajectory. Again, people work right with the right amount of stress, so we all need to continue doing what we're doing, for starters. And the vision I'm about to sell, because I've had a chance to not so much refine it, but constantly check it, the vision I understand is the solution for the world going forward, is pretty solid. It seems to work at every level. And at first I thought, look, it's not going to work because everybody that unifies in the method of living that I'm about to say would become a case of haves and potentially have-nots. And ultimately, if the economic system that I'm about to propose was to take off, then there would be a lot of people invested in the old world structure that might feel like there's an imminent collapse, and that it might lead to all sorts of economic frailties that could actually tumble us before we actually take off. So the best part about the vision I'm about to sell is it actually transitions through the 3 stages. One where the new paradigm has less wealth and less capability, to one where the existing world has somewhat transitioned over to more numbers and more support towards a method of living more economically with the planet, if you wish, and to the point where ultimately I'd like to be supporting world-class resorts and entertainment and accommodation from this sector, such that the flowing of money joyfully from the people with the money still, who haven't jumped ship and joined, if you will actually continue to flow. It'll actually flow in a way that's actually a great exchange, and it's actually what everybody's going to see. So, well, let's talk a little bit. What am I talking about? Okay, so I'll give an example, right? So I'm in the country of Australia. We've got a great big, essentially desert, this land in the middle that is of little worth to everybody. Now, one of the first things I learned when learning the effective use of money is that the land, I don't want to say land so much, property is the market that everybody knew to invest in as quickly as possible, because property always seems to go up. And in a world with a growing population and arguably finite resources to sell, eventually we can see that the value of land is assuming we make 20 billion people or 200 billion people, or if we live in peace and if our epoch continues, then land will eventually will have built up. Let's just say will have built up. So at the moment, I look at land as this incredible potential resource to actually generate a lot of money. And by that, I take an example from, I think it was the American history with the Dust Bowl, where I believe 1 million people, maybe more, essentially, even some of them went out of their jobs. If they weren't unemployed, a lot of people unified and they went out and they created swales, which is like where you create a little couple of ruts in the ground at different heights, such that if rain was to happen, water might pool. And with clever planting and a lot of people, a lot of manpower, a lot of person power, if you will, we reclaimed land that was essentially nearly valueless. Now, we can argue at the time that was to save economy, or that was to save a conversion of the land into something that would eventually worsened for everybody. But the fact was, people unified, people were motivated, and we reclaimed land that was essentially valueless. Now, I'll come back to my country, Australia, where a great big desert in the middle, and so I'm proposing at the moment like a test study, if you wish. And Australia's a great pool of people for a test study. There's a lot of our aspects that are similar to the rest of the modern world, to the mainstream countries, if you wish. Sometimes we seem to only see the world as if we're the only country that exists. And not so much Australia, but everyone's an island in their own living, I suppose. So here in Australia, we're a great test study for a range of reasons. Our demographics, sometimes the rollout time, couldn't say that with phone networks, and our geography and the scattering of our population over a large land space is a little bit different to other countries. And that's why some of our statistics, such as I guess the rate of petrol we use, if you live in the country, you kind of got to have a car to travel places. And so Australia has some weird statistics, but we're a great test case. So what I would like to do is put in play my vision to refine, using a board of kinesiologists and a lot of really good number crunchers, actuaries, if you will, and whatever is needed in the rest of the team to get an overview and to litmus test some ways of implementation of technology and society which actually works, and getting it to the price point where the money going out basically is balanced to money coming in, almost like a franchise, and then being able to give it to other countries, rolling it out in a way of the model that we've tested as working. So I'd like to believe that the Australian one is going to cost more than any other one to make, and to that extent I'm quite willing to dedicate my life to making it profitable, if you will. Now, by profitable, what are we talking? Well, okay, what I'd like to do is to offer everybody a solution to all of their problems. So when we look at the rat race, and sorry if that's a derogatory term, I must admit I don't know where it originated from, and I really hope it's not bigotous or something. But when we look at the modern world living, it doesn't create happiness at any level for most of the people involved. And I think of the classic example in the modern world where every business has tightened its belt and tightened its supply chains and tightened its front of house to get down the engagement with customers to the absolute minimum that still allows them to generate the most profit. And even in the modern world, we've taken that too far. And I give the example of the post office in our own country. Have probably figured out that if you put customers on a 45-minute waiting list to complain about a $2 stamp refund, most people are not going to waste that much time. And at the moment, the big businesses, most of the big corporations, have been refining this over the last 8 years, maybe 6 years, and figuring out what socio-economic brackets do they want to sell into, and actually deeming which of their customers are worth servicing and which products should have a supply life of how long and what price point. And we're getting to the point where we're actually pushing ourselves into a great divide which has never been seen before at this level, and it wouldn't be sustainable. It would probably lead to civil war. It would lead to a case of have and have-nots and an irrevocable society, a direction that we go in that wouldn't be able to be turned around. Okay, we're still at the point of the Great Reset that everyone's now talking about, and I'd never conceived. I always realised that the vision that I'm about to pitch would be an essential Great Reset, but I'd never come up with those terms, never coined them. So now I'm looking at a world where everybody's working very hard and not necessarily very happy. And the amount of time I would spend arguing my phone bill and just ironing clothes to get to work, and the travel times and the costs and the investments that we all have to do to keep everything going around, and it's just a little bit ridiculous. And we're not being effective. Okay, we're not being effective in our time, which means we're missing out on proper engagement with our loved ones. And of course, some of us take it too far, and we love our entertainment, and we never sort of break away from it because the world is too scary. Okay, so we need to create a society where we can feel safe and secure and in control, to the limits of our personal self and for our needs, and that our needs are met. And so coming back to great investment being property, and coming back to what do we do over the course of our lives? Well, if we've got a good education that our parents, for example, might, or an uncle might tell us, get on the property ladder because it's a good investment, it always grows. All the loans and all the money that needs to get pushed uphill for everybody to make a slice, to take a slice of our wages for the rest of our lives, ideally, so that they can perpetuate themselves, has gotten to the point where it's choking us. So what would happen if we turned it around? What would happen if we assumed that every human being over the course of their life would give back enough to society to justify giving them the things that they need up front? So what I'm proposing, and this is what I'm proposing more so to my direct kinship Australians, because I'd like to, again, be the wing leaders of this one, is that essentially by going inland, okay, so I want to build like a monorail, a mass transport system that's effective, and using solar, and if anything, like just pumping water up high as a battery, using water wheels, etc., to reclaim power. Lots of ways that are environmentally friendly to make use of current technology, and clever implementation. And that's really what it's going to come down to, is clever implementation. And we're going to ideally take this like a monorail, and we're just going to get people en masse, almost shoulder to shoulder, and we're just going to reclaim land of very little value. Because what happens when you put a house on property, it's the value of the land that justifies the value of the property at a resale level. So working in the current economic system, if I'm just to take a big loan and run, can't say roads, but let's just say groves of trees, right? Because we need to farm. We need to get a little bit back to not having a few people make the food for everybody, okay? Especially when farmers get treated pretty poorly in terms of the amount of money they get paid for the work that they do in their part of the supply chain. So if a bunch of people, people who like playing with trees and nature, not everybody wants to be a farmer, that's fair, but if we start to reclaim land in a very, very beautiful way, turning it to very, very beautiful nature, a lot of landscapers, a lot of artists and craftsmen, people who like to build, because we need structures. At every possible level, there's going to be a lot of physical labour. There's also going to be a lot of mental labour. So trust me, your skill set is needed. But if we go inland in Australia, where it's desert, and we take land of very, very little value and we turn it into high value land. Okay, so it becomes high value land if there's a suburb structure, and again, you look to Canberra, very clever design there. Knowing what it needed to do, clever design of a city ultimately makes the infrastructure cheaper to maintain. And so at every level, prior preparation prevents poor performance, perhaps. If we're a little bit precognitive of what our needs are, we should be able to lower the cost of living. And again, this comes down to if it's affordable to, and I believe it is, to give everybody what they need up front. Okay, so if you've not just got your house, but also the entertainment and the various things in your house that you need, crime pretty much drops off. Okay, crime is a case of have and have-nots, people feeling they haven't got something. We also get a lot of crime associated with industries that can't be regulated. There's a lot of things that we need to really look at a societal level, and I believe with technology we can all cast a vote pretty quickly. I feel that a new societal structure should be able to overcome a lot of difficulties, but again, I'm quite willing for our little Australian wing to be the litmus test, the test model, if you will, and see how we go. But the idea is that we take land of very little value, and by reclaiming it and making it valuable, that the asset growth that we are essentially making as a group or an organisation is enough that you can usually borrow against the improvement. So if I buy a house for $1,000 and then I do it up, right, and I renovate it like crazy, and it's selling into a market where they're all worth $100,000, and mine might not be very good. I'm not a handyman, but I've used blue tack and I've stuck it all together, and it might be worth $5,000, right? And my effort might have only been $1,000 worth, and so my total outlay was about $2,000. But there's actually some profit in there, and so if I then go to the bank and say, hey, this object is now worth more money, I can actually borrow against that value again. I can look at it and I can go, yeah, you've got a sellable object that's actually worth something. It's worth more money. We can loan you more money, right? And so, look, it might become a fake bubble. I don't want to crash our economy by moving our entire population inland and building us all mansions. Like that. That could put us in a position where, if as a group we're not generating wealth, then we'd be in a problem. Now, I do feel we can give everybody everything they need, and that will actually put them in a more relaxed position. And believe it or not, the flow-on effect to our creatives. Generally, the creatives are the people who are told by the rest of their family members, don't do that, work harder, okay? Because they probably had to, the generation before us probably didn't get to follow their dreams. They had to get down and work harder. But what happens when you take the stress and the fear away from our creatives is that the quality of the media that they're creating no longer has this, the embedded stresses of a person trying to vent, or almost like a good counselling session to work through the aspects that are in their mind. And when I watch media, that's what I see. I see a hurt population. Okay, I often see, and I see great media, don't get me wrong, I see passionate things, and I see people writing with love or with incredible creativity towards a goal, which is sometimes to educate. But quite often it's almost like it's therapy. And you can see in a world where there's a lot less vetting of scripts because we're clearly short of entertainment makers, a lot of scripts that I would think that probably would never have been given the go-ahead just in the modern world are, because we need more to consume, right? There's too many TV networks all trying to compete, and that there's just not enough media. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is sound studios and making movies, making TV shows, making video games, believe it or not. So there's a lot of needs for programmers, a lot of needs for at every possible level, people who can build things, people who can think things, and everything in between. Obviously, we've got to account for the units that are being earned. And coming back to a society which I'm talking here about a society that integrates really well. Imagine if you could do any job. I mean any job. If you could lick stamps for an hour, okay, wet stamps on a sponge and put them on envelopes, or fold the envelopes, or maybe clean a toilet, or, sorry, that's plunging, fix a toilet. I didn't do miming or acting, my pulse. So if we all do a very little bit, then everything gets done and we move forward. Now, what if we could move the value of the hourly wage appropriately based on the needs of what needs to get done? Nobody wants to clean toilets, but if we paid appropriately well and limited the number of hours a day you could do it for, we'd actually have a subset of society, or people that actually enjoy, for 1 hour a day, achieving essentially 30% maybe of what they need to do that day. They might need to do a little bit of their own food prep time. That might be what they elect to in their own life, in their choices, if you will, to connect to society. And the idea is that everybody can choose where they want to get on it. Now, for example, I'm quite happy to live in a hut. I'm quite happy if everything becomes quite profitable to stay living in less than ideal conditions. Now, the reason I would do that is that I would believe the people in the pay structure that are generating wealth but not wanting to spend any of it are essentially our biggest earners, because we do know that money makes money. So the brainiacs, the mathematicians and the various roles that are needed, trust me, there's a few, to keep track of the numbers and to keep track of the scalability of the operation and to make sure that everything is, again, test model, happening the way it should be, then hopefully we'll come up with a situation where we can work together and feel really good about what we're doing and all become very profitable, very happy and very self-sufficient. And the self-sufficient part is fairly important, because we essentially need to have the world operating in cells. And I say this because I live in a country which gives much charity. And anytime there's been an issue around the world, I've seen the countries with money, often, not all of them, but often give relief to areas of disaster. And I think of the classic example, there was a hurricane hit the side of our country a while ago now, and it wiped out all of our banana crops at a time in the season that was pretty detrimental. We were without bananas for a very long while, and something as stable as a banana, which has always been a fairly cheap fruit in this country, was 10 times more expensive. And if not 10 times, it was enough to be you question getting bananas. It was enough to be that your fish and chip shop that sold a banana milkshake or banana smoothie was like, yeah, that's not on the menu right now. It almost wasn't profitable. If there was $2 of profit in making a smoothie or a milkshake, all of a sudden the banana costs so much, it's like, yeah, look, that's not on the menu. So we need to buffer ourselves potentially for the ability to distribute food and products in ways that are meaningful. And sometimes it's a case of, for example, I think chocolate can only be grown in a 10 degree from the equator. There's some products that are very labour intensive. I don't know if coffee beans are, but there are some things that can be done by hand and done better by hand. And for example, I don't think chocolate is a sustainable industry. I think the reason we all have chocolate in this world right now is because in some of the countries that produce it for us, there is maybe child labour or labour that isn't paid effectively for what, certainly for the product that they're making, and its worth in the market. So what we need to do is to look to the things we need in the future and to ensure that we're going to have them, which will require aspects of ensuring that there is proper distribution lines. And I'd like to think there's going to be a fair exchange between countries or potentially economies. Now, it's hard to say. I don't know essentially if we're a franchise. I mean, at the end of the day, I know I'm a charity. I'm not for profit. And I'm happy to pay the employees well with distributed wealth. But at the end of the day, not that there's going to be an end to any day, I'd like to think, we're going to find ourselves, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit caught up in my own spiel here. Maybe it's the 7-minute mark, maybe I just need to drink some water. I can only hope my recording device is still recording, and that might be my concern. We'd probably hit the 15-minute mark, and every other recording device would have cut out right about now, and I'd feel like I'd have to run and start it again. But I'm working at the moment on the assumption that I am still recording, and that's actually the basis of this video going on the net. And if any of the little things that need to line up to get this video on the net don't, then I'll put it off another year. No, we can't afford to put it off another year. But we do need to amass we need to get involved. Now, is that in sharing this video? Look, probably not this video. I'd like to think if this video has gone in any way rampant, there's probably a version 2, which might have been built by a team of people. Assuming that I've got some backing or some support, that I might have a cameraman, or I might have a microphone, or I might have some better equipment. We might have some video editing. And better than that, we might have some proofing of the materials that aren't just stream of consciousness. And it might be something more worthwhile. But let's look to a future where we're working together. So what are we doing? What do we need right now? Okay, so there might be some people out there that go, hey, this guy's got it, right? And there might be companies that make solar cells and go, oh, he might need some support from us. Well, no. I'm quite happy to give you stats and metrics. You know, if I've got to build solar cells in like almost a domed over valley, if you will, to do temperature control, to have like a wind farm, to at every single level generate the most optimal conditions for solar cells, and then to benchmark and measure what they can do, then let's just say it's an exchange of information. And again, I think I might be able to find a workforce, if you will, to be the worker bees, to allow us to carry out scientific experiments. If you will, it's part of probably tertiary studies that might be that we're working towards. So look, there's going to be lots of learning. There's going to be lots of chance to do studies, and there's going to be lots of opportunity for potentially big companies to give, or for individuals, altruistic people perhaps, to go, look, this guy, tone of voice, sounds serious, look, I'll back him, $1,000. Look, doesn't take much. I live on $500 a week. I rent, so I need base level of rent, which is fairly expensive, and not much else. I've got all my entertainment covered. I've lived a good life. My outgoings each week are paltry. And thrift store shirt and reclaimed, thank you, artist child. It's probably 8 years old, this shirt. But we can live cheaply. Sorry, what I'm saying is, if money was to come my way, or if people in other countries were to want to give me money, okay, now here's the sting. I probably don't need that much money straight up. This depends on how viral this video goes. What would happen if all the money was to land in Australia in my pockets? I couldn't spend it that quickly. And right now, our governments need to stabilise. So I'd actually say 90% of all the money that anyone might think to back me with probably needs to stay in your own country. Okay, so we're going to be building a network in your country to do the same thing. And so people seeing this video, some might go, hey, I'm keen to do this. I'm going to pass this on to some people. And you might pass it on to some people, and a day later they might say, hey, what do you think about that video? And through a hot beverage conversation, you might decide, hey, we might want to do something with this. And you might then find yourself in a circle of people that the table across from you realise the same thing's going on. And it's going to be a case of we're going to link up, we're going to link up, we're going to link up. And what we're going to find is that there might be pools of money available to us. And I'd like to find that as soon as at an admin level we can distribute this money in effective ways in all countries to start supporting people in groups, making the relevant changes or getting the relevant administration in place, that money will be needed. But it's no point it jumping across seas, especially when your government right now, and so this is where I just want every country to have an account for my charity, where people in your own country can leave their money at the door. And now if 1% or whatever, some small token of that money, I'd like to say 10%, because that seems like the tithe, always through life. It's been 10%, and believe you me, it's investment money, and it's there as a loan pool to come back if there's any shortfall in your economy, if it's needed to stabilise, because when there's some turbulence, turbulence can be good, we can ride it, but if we go too far and things tip, then the cost to fix things is often exorbitant. We don't need to lose money in ways because we just couldn't get money where it was needed at the appropriate time. And to be fair, that would probably be the first thing I'd be doing. I'd be backing certain industries that are potentially on the precipice of collapse. Just like, hey guys, look, we need to stabilise you. 80% of what your manufacturing is actually, if it was changed a bit, would be perfect for us. But we understand for the next 6 months, the world economy is moving away from you, but we need to stabilise you. So look, here's a lump sum or something to get you going. There's going to be a big redistribution of wealth in order to float us all and to sail or to surf. I'm not a surfer, but to surf through the oncoming storm, because there is challenging weather ahead. But I'd like to think if we huddle together, it's usually been the way society has survived storms, and I think we're going to do that. Look, there's some brilliant people out there. I look to influential channels of just people that are talking about the fact that it is about unification. You know, that humanity is a team sport, and that we all are humanly, we all connect. You know, we all see a crying child and go, I don't want to eat that. You know, like, it's cute. But beyond that, we actually love our family, and if we've ever had a brief stint with other cultures, usually I find that anyone that goes to a university or a tertiary study institute where there's a cross-cultural experience, they generally lose a lot of their isms straight up. And look, I mean, I'd like to be a non-toxic male presence if I am in any way a front of house or an entertainment channel. Yeah, I'm quite happy to cry on camera, because at the end of the day, we need to role model correct living and successful, happy life. And anyway, trying to get what I was saying about countries and money pools is that, look, if any money winds up here in Australia, look, I believe if that's fantastic, and I'd like to think I can work with my government, and there might be some land that they might be able to donate to me. I don't know. Look, there might be some level I can work with my government. At the end of the day, I'd like to be making really, really good, healthy food that has life force in it, because it's grown in soil with nutrients. And that food, you know, even if it's given to old folks in nursing homes, because we've got an increasing age population, and our elderly in all world sectors are living longer than they have in the past. And I don't know if enough governments have put money aside for the extended life that medicine is now allowing us to have. So at this point in stage, I mean, I want to make great food and get it to the elderly, presently the unemployed, anyone that, you know, there might be things I can do to work with my government. There might be a primary resource that I've got to be able to barter or exchange all sorts of, I don't know if it'll be taxation credits. But look, at the moment, we all just need to work together and find ways to shake it. And I've got them. But if I try to lay them all down right now, and trust me, it's a holistic, it's a total overview. It's a little bit too much in one video, especially when this is just to wet your lips and say that, look, you know, change is potential, and that might be the one we're after. Well, trust me, this is it. I was born on the day of the person who will save this planet. It's written in the Chinese Book of Dates. And they say that anyone born on this day, they'll either go mad from the responsibility of the role, or they'll, you know, I'm embracing it. And I've spent an entire life, and I tell you, whether you have religion in your life, I would say that there has definitely been a path illuminated for me, that I've been given a beautiful life, a challenging life, but that it has been able to allow me to check my model of living for the people of the world and the benefits it will bring. And I can assure you that if we float all of our existing governments, and trust me, our government just went, hey, we're about to suffer a world financial downturn, we're going to just float our people with money, and those people spending that money will actually bounce the economy back, and it did. And so all world governments right now just need a pool of money, right, to just bounce them for a small amount of time. And in private enterprise, and there's a lot of individuals that have piles of money in the bank that will never ever buy them a better hamburger or a better TV, and they're probably ready to, so long as they know they're promoting life, share that money around. And like, if I can give some guarantees at some levels, and trust me, I'll be putting up a charity board if I've got money to do it. And even just to continue these videos, if 600 people were to give me $1, well, I'm doing this for another 10 days. If I've got $1,000, well, that's a week. But if I wind up with $50,000, well, that's the, you know, next 2 years of my life, pretty much giving 100%. So look, I'm more than willing to commit, and I don't need to withdraw. And I'm really looking forward to. I've got some great video game concepts, got some great writing concepts. I love to be able to work with a lot of talented people, better than I am, at filmmaking, if we will, and creative pursuits, and support the artists, and support everybody's intellectual passions that have gotten them to where they are, and that they're existing in their background trainings. There is something you can do. Okay, and so at the moment you might be feeling, well, I'm sitting at home and my industry's been deprecated. We want you. Okay, there's a future, and it's not far away. And just go to sleep feeling great. Okay, because get a good night's sleep, be in your best state of operation, and let's move forward together. And look, I'd like to say that when all our fears are dealt with, and when we're living well, and we're able to look in the eyes of a stranger and not feel fear for a range of reasons, that the change of life, this is not one that we're ready for. You know, now we're talking about a great reset, but everyone at the moment thinks the great reset is a financial reset. It isn't. It's a change of paradigm. It's a change of the way we live. And we can do that. You know, we haven't looked at technology again since the Industrial Revolution. We had the Industrial Revolution, and everyone with money realised they can make more money, and that's exactly what's happened. And we've had that happen now for a couple of hundred years. Well, it's time for these models to reinvent themselves a bit, because the people at the top have often found that their industries can be decimated overnight by a big buyout by a company that's bigger. And again, the big companies know that money makes money, and that owning the competitors owns industries. And you know, we've gotten to the point now where companies are bigger than countries. And let's face it, countries have always been needed to regulate the safety, the security, the well-being of the populace. And governments can't do that anymore. They don't have the power to overview technology, certainly at the pace of technology evolution as is needed. And so we kind of ultimately need to go almost private enterprise. Now, when we look at the structures of, I can't say commerce, but there's structures of government that are potentially the most successful for the people. The one that is deemed by most people to be the one that is the way forward, or the one that is most likely to work for everybody and do it right, it's never been tested in the history of humanity. And we can do it right now, and that's the great thing. So if we need a great reset, we can do it, and we can do it together. And we can all employ ourselves, ideally for a charity, if you will. And it's going to be a pretty big charity, but it's pro your country. Okay, wherever your country is, it's pro your country. Okay, there's you know, I understand there's security agencies that are going to tell me, oh no, we can't back that country because of this and this and this. Okay, we need to think outside the square a little bit, but there is a way to let the money that's currently pooled flow down the chimney and fill everybody's stockings, and that's what I'm proposing. And this video isn't the one that's given the way of doing it, and I've got it down almost line by line in terms of the rollout and how to do it. And this was not my preferred method. I must admit, I would rather have had the whole thing in a book ready to go, so that like, I'm a Chinese fire dragon, and I think Chinese dogs, and I'm not into astrology, but the Chinese astrology seems pretty spot on. I think the Chinese dogs, for example, everything I say, that they want to challenge it. And actually, if we argue for long enough, they actually defer eventually to my wisdom and go, oh, you're right, you did actually see that thing on the periphery, which I didn't think you had accounted for. Okay, so I guess you could say I'm asking for a lot of faith, but if you believe in people, people are fallible. Okay, so it's not about me. I never wanted it to be about me, and that's probably the reason why I've never been on video prior to this day. I'm not the ego-based person that wants this. It's not a role that I want, but it's an arc that's been forced on me. And I mean, I spent a lot of time staring at the roof, probably a bit depressed about the fact that I'm not doing this. So right now, out of my own mental well-being, if you will, and I'm very happy and very well balanced right now, but a little bit excited, I guess, because I feel in a moment I'm going to stand up and hit the stop button and then post this video. Look, if you do like this video, I'm not going to say subscribe, but I guess this is probably worth subscribing to, but I can't even believe I'm using this language right now. I've just created this shift in your mental thinking because of programming. You've learnt when hearing those words, oh my God, switch off. You know it's the end of the video. I'd love it if I just had another gust of hot air and just laid out another 30 minutes of chatting. I guess you can see a little time bar down the bottom, and you probably know shit it is at the end of the video. So, look, I'm not going to say, look, maybe share. Look, I'd also say support, but I don't want to come across as a charity case. Yeah, I'm going to run a charity, but I'm running a charity for profit. Don't you dare think that I need your help. I want your help. I need everybody's help, really, but I don't need your help. If you feel that you're in a worse off spot than I am, then don't give up your living for me. But if you're in a better off spot than I am, and trust me, you probably are, because you know, everything in my life needs servicing. My bills are generally paid a little bit late, and I'm always happy to shop for end of day specials at the supermarket. To say that I'm not in the high socioeconomic bracket is fair. But I don't need money. I just need enough money to cover my rent, and I'm 100 and a token amount of food, and just keep the lights on, and I guess the internet on if I'm going to continue to share. But if this video serves its purpose and does what it does, and I'm going to be doing the embarrassing thing, I'm going to put this video up in the circles that I like to hang out in, and so I really hope this hasn't cost me some skin with them. Because, you know, if this video falls on its ass and tomorrow I want to go back to writing in the forums that I like to write in, I'd still like to be one of them, and not be the crazy guy that, or not to create a negative situation where you feel that, you know, if I'd just backed that guy, it might have happened. Okay, don't worry about it. Look, if you've seen this video and somehow a month's gone by and nobody's ever heard anything more of it, chances are I'm out there beavering away considering making another one, or maybe getting it in book format. And you know, keep your eyes on the horizon and stay steady, peoples. Look, I should drink my water on class. Yes, it's a small glass. I'm not a big person. It's so vital. We need to drink more water. Alrighty, much love.